Zodiac signs and their red flags. Check timestamps for your sign. Aries. They calm down quickly and sometimes expect the damage to disappear just as fast. During conflict, the response may come before the full message has even been understood. A sharp sentence lands, the argument peaks, and 5 minutes later, they are ready to act normal again. The red flag is not having a temper. It is treating their emotional recovery as the deadline for everyone else's forgiveness. They may apologize for getting loud while avoiding what was actually said. Directness becomes harmful when it leaves no room for listening, reflection, or the possibility that the other person needs more time. Taurus. Every request for change may be answered with a reminder of how well things used to work. They can stay loyal to a routine, agreement, or version of the relationship long after the other person has stopped feeling comfortable inside it. What once looked dependable begins feeling immovable. The red flag appears when familiarity becomes more important than what is happening now. They may insist nothing is seriously wrong because the relationship has survived this long. Meanwhile, the same unresolved issue keeps returning. Stability becomes stagnation when protecting the old structure matters more than listening to the person asking for something to change. Gemini. The conversation can be long, thoughtful, and still leave the only important question unanswered. They know how to explain context, add nuance, and turn one issue into 5 connected ideas. That can feel emotionally intelligent until someone realizes clarity keeps being postponed. The red flag is using communication to avoid making a decision. They may describe every possible feeling except the one that would define where the relationship stands. The other person receives attention, chemistry, and endless conversation, but no solid answer. Curiosity becomes inconsistency when words keep the connection alive, while commitment, accountability, or a clear choice remains permanently under discussion. Cancer. Care starts feeling different when it is brought up as evidence during every disagreement. They remember the favors, emotional support, and sacrifices they made, then quietly expect the other person to understand what should be given back. The problem is that those expectations are not always spoken beforehand. One day, the sentence appears, "After everything I've done for you." Suddenly, affection feels like a bill that has been accumulating in secret. The red flag is not caring deeply. It is giving without boundaries, then resenting people for failing a test they never knew existed. Love becomes exhausting when kindness is later used as leverage. Leo. You bring up what hurt you, and somehow the conversation ends with you reassuring them that they are still valued. That is the warning sign. Criticism can feel so personal that the original issue gets pushed aside while attention shifts toward their wounded pride. They may focus on your tone, timing, or wording rather than what they actually did. Appreciation matters to them, but it becomes a problem when accountability must always be wrapped in admiration. Confidence turns self-centered when every disagreement becomes a referendum on their importance. The other person should not have to make them feel special before being allowed to feel hurt. Virgo. You finish the task, and the first thing they mention is the part you missed. Their attention to detail can be helpful, but repeated correction makes people feel as though effort is invisible unless the result matches their preferred method. They may solve a problem when comfort was needed, improve a plan nobody asked them to fix, or call criticism help because the intention was practical. The red flag is assuming their way is automatically the most responsible or caring one. Support becomes management when the person beside them feels constantly reviewed. Eventually, even praise can sound like the introduction to another adjustment. Libra. The manners remain perfect while the relationship quietly loses warmth. They may say everything is fine, keep conversations pleasant, and avoid naming the issue until resentment has already changed how they feel. By the time the truth finally appears, the other person is hearing about weeks of disappointment all at once. The red flag is not disliking conflict. It is withholding important information, then emotionally withdrawing because the problem was never fixed. Diplomacy becomes avoidance when peace is maintained only on the surface. A partner cannot repair what they were repeatedly told did not exist, no matter how obvious the distance feels afterward. Scorpio. They may ask for complete honesty, while revealing only what helps them stay in control. Questions become tests, delayed replies become clues. A harmless inconsistency gets stored until it can be compared with something said weeks later. The red flag is not wanting trust. It is demanding transparency while keeping their own doubts, fears, and conclusions hidden. The other person can begin feeling examined rather than known. Emotional depth becomes control when closeness requires constant proof, but vulnerability is never equally shared. Trust cannot grow when one person must remain completely open, while the other decides privately whether every answer is good enough. Sagittarius. A serious conversation suddenly becomes too heavy, too dramatic, or a threat to their freedom. They may joke, change the subject, make plans, or physically leave before the uncomfortable part has been fully discussed. Independence is attractive until every request for reassurance is treated like an attempt to control them. The red flag is using freedom as an excuse to avoid emotional responsibility. They may be honest about what they want, but less willing to stay for the impact of how they said it. Adventure becomes escape when movement is always easier than repair, and the other person is left processing alone. Capricorn. They pay the bill, solve the problem, handle the schedule, and then seem confused that you still want to discuss how they spoke to you. Practical contribution can become their proof that the relationship is being handled correctly. The red flag appears when competence is used to dismiss emotional concerns. Because they are carrying responsibilities, they may assume their decisions should carry more weight, or that feelings can wait until everything important is finished. But everything is never finished. Reliability becomes emotional distance when providing replaces listening. A relationship can function perfectly on paper, while one person still feels managed, minimized, and alone. Aquarius. They disappear to process, return when they feel ready, and act surprised that the silence affected anyone else. Needing space is not the red flag. Making another person feel irrational for wanting an explanation is. They may turn emotional concerns into debates about freedom, logic, or why expectations are unnecessary. The more personal the issue becomes, the more detached the conversation can sound. Independence becomes avoidance when they expect unlimited understanding without offering basic reassurance. The other person starts questioning whether normal needs are somehow excessive. Space should create clarity, not leave someone wondering whether the relationship still exists. Pisces. The promise may be sincere every single time. That is what makes the pattern difficult to recognize. They feel genuine regret, explain the emotions behind what happened, and create a deeply convincing moment of reconnection. Then the behavior slowly returns. The red flag is not dishonesty in the obvious sense. They may fully believe what they are saying while saying it. The problem is mistaking emotional sincerity for actual change. Apologies become another meaningful scene instead of a turning point. The person close to them keeps trusting the feeling of the conversation, while daily reality remains unchanged. Eventually, hope starts carrying the entire relationship alone. Conclusion. A red flag is often a strength that stopped respecting other people's boundaries. The trait that first pulls someone in can become the same one that makes closeness exhausting when there is no self-awareness behind it. Directness, care, independence, and loyalty are not the problem. The problem is what happens when those qualities leave no space for anyone else. What red flag from your own sign are you willing to admit? Share it in the comments and follow for more zodiac insights without the recycled stereotypes.